So here I am. It's 2016. I've gotten the role that I always wanted. Chief Information Officer is the height of my career. Not only that, I'm working on 1 Madison Avenue, Midtown, New York City. I had the title, I had the salary, I had the equity, and I was working towards an IPO. I had all of this, everything that my mentors, society were telling me that I wanted. But I can't tell you enough how much it felt like hell. And I'll tell you why. Because I remember distinctly in September of that year when I had to, for the 5th time in a row, pick up the phone from my wife, who was at home with our 3 young sons at the time, and let her know that I wasn't going to be able to make it home for dinner, and I wasn't definitely going to be home for bedtime. And then also probably the next day I was going to need to sleep in, because by the time I got home, I was going to be exhausted. I was tired and frustrated because at this point, I'd amassed a lot of wealth through tech equity, but my wealth wasn't working for me. I was still working for it. This was the big mindset shift. Fast forward to today, my life is completely different. I left full-time W-2 employment in August of 2022 to run my micro-family office full-time that replaces my paycheck. I work on interesting projects, and my work is built around my family. My family comes first. I'm able to pick up my boys after school, go to sporting events, and always be present when I want to be and I need to be. Today, I want to walk you through what is the mindset shift that I had to make to go on this journey, to start on this journey from money maker to money manager. Because this is the most important journey that you will make that will lead you ultimately to the lifestyle that you design. I'm going to unpack all of that for you here today. Let's dig in. Welcome to Managing Tech Millions. I'm your host, Christopher Nelson, and we're continuing the Foundation series. This is episode 7, and I'm here to tell you this one is going to get real personal real quick. The Foundation series is exactly what it says. It is to provide you a foundation of what you need to know and understand to start transitioning your career from money maker to money manager, and all of the things that you need to know to build your own micro-family office that can allow you to design the life that you want. So today is the first part of the origin story. The origin story of how I developed the idea of the micro-family office and wealth ops to come with it starts with a mindset shift. Starts with how I needed to think differently to start on this path altogether. It's going to cover off on some key lessons that I learned that were really profound. I'm going to give you the backstory behind it, and I'm sure that you're going to be able to relate to a lot of these things. The key thing to understand is that before the IPO, before any of the titles, before any of the working in technology, I already had a mindset shift. I had read Rich Dad, Poor Dad in college, and I had this image of his quadrant 4, where your money is working for you. And the concepts that he laid out really helped build this vision for me that I could build and amass a large quantity of wealth, millions of dollars, and I could get those dollars working for me. And then that would be my business. My business would mean my dollars working as hard as I did. And then I could build my lifestyle around that. So I started with that vision. And it's important that you understand this as well, that when you start pursuing real wealth, it starts with a level of awareness of where do you want to go and what do you want to focus on? Because it's not just about managing dollars and growing dollars. It's really about where do you want to take your life and how do you want to build that life? The key thing to understand is that I realized that for myself, I didn't want to stop working. This wasn't about a, FIRE movement, financial independence, retire early. No, I still wanted to be able to contribute. I wanted to be able to have impact in this world. But what I wanted was life on my terms. I wanted to build a business and a life that I didn't need a vacation from, and that my family and my life was completely integrated with. That was really the vision that I had when I started this journey altogether. And I think for many of you, you're out there right now thinking and imagining the life that you want. You also, I know many technology employees don't want to stop working. They do want to continue to create impact. They want to continue to be involved at a certain level. And I think that's important that you realize and understand that as well. People love talking about where they ended up. What was the result of what they did? I want to share with you, when was the moment that I woke up? When was the moment that I realized that I had to change the way that I thought, the way that I acted to get to the lifestyle that I wanted? Because what changed for me was not the IPO. It's what's happened in the months that followed. I had this uncomfortable awareness that I had everything that I'd ever wanted, that I'd worked for, but that wasn't getting me to the life that I wanted. This discomfort is what really sparked the mindset shift, that really got me thinking, what do I need to do differently? What do I need to think differently to get a different result? So that's what we're going to cover in this episode today. I want to walk you through my wake up call. What happened post IPO that really shifted the way that I thought. I also want to cover off on this emotional blind spot that I think happens to a lot of us that go through IPOs, acquisitions, or even build wealth slowly over time. And then I want to really talk about what is the new game and the new rules. What are the things that you need to do differently to get a different result? And then also, how do you need to understand how this whole new game is played if you want to play to win? I will never forget my first IPO day. It was April 19th, 2012. We were one of the most anticipated IPOs of the year, and everybody was setting up for a big party. So getting there was a lot of excitement in the air as people were realizing, nobody really talked about it, but we all knew like this was the day that our lives were going to change. I think for many of us, we knew on paper that the price target that we had, which was $17 a share, that's where we were supposed to start trading on the market. That number would make majority of people in the room millionaires. So we were very excited. They were setting up, I mean, I think very traditional, Silicon Valley, especially 2012. This was, pre-remote companies. Everybody was in the office. There's a omelet bar. There's a DJ setting up. There was on the ping pong tables, they had Veuve Clicquot champagne, just covering this thing, bottles standing up, ready to be popped when the thing went off. Connected to the NASDAQ with our executive team that was there in New York, and we were waiting for the market to open trading. So at 6:30, we're all just watching this television in silence, completely engaged. There's a little murmur in the room to see where is this going to go out at. 6:31, nothing has happened at that point. 6:32, still nothing has happened. And we're not sure whether the TV's broken or what's going on. So we're texting our friends that are there in New York. And the message that we get back is it's not trading right now because the banks that are holding the stock believe that the price should go higher. So we've already done our calculations at 17 where it's going to be tremendous. Now we're thinking the price is going higher. At around 6:36, when it finally started trading, it started trading at close to, I think it was somewhere between $32 and $34 a share. So that's important that you realize that whatever our expectations were of the millions of dollars that we were going to make at 17, within a matter of 3 or 4 minutes, that doubled like that. I never knew, and I never imagined that anything like that could happen, but that was amazing. And literally, as soon as the price came out and everyone started cheering, it was somebody cued the DJ, the music kicks off, and literally this massive party ensues. And again, this is at 6:35 in the morning, and we are starting to rage. So you can imagine that, the party was just taking off and getting started, and we party into the afternoon. I think the feeling in the room was we won. Like we fought hard to get to this point and we won. And there's some of us that had been there for, 12 to 14 months. Other people had been there for 6 years, but everyone, the feeling of that moment was we won the game. It was also a moment where your wealth went from sort of this paper stock agreement to now it was shares in your account trading as a public stock, it definitely felt much more real and had a value that you could see every single day. That was absolutely amazing, and a day that I will never forget. So for us, I mean, I think about my wife and I, like, where were we at that time? Like, we were middle class for the Bay Area. Middle class for the Bay Area is both people were working. We both had six-figure salaries. We were able to put money in the bank. We were living in an apartment at the time, and we were doing well. We saw ourselves continuing to grow our wealth, but this was my first real equity play that, again, had any type of success. And I think that we were in the middle of building a family and we were trying to grow it. But neither my wife or I had come from money. My wife, her family immigrated here to the United States. And I think, again, they were lower middle class. I think myself, we would be middle class. Mom was a school teacher. Dad worked as a project manager in a construction company. And this was something that was brand new to us, but it was something that was part of our goals, was to, how do we build this wealth and then get it working for us? That my wife and I both had that in mind. So as the party was starting to fade, and I was, one of the people that had to make sure that everybody got home safely, and Ubers and everything. And as people started taking the parties outside the office, we closed the office early that day and people were going home and just glowing. It was time for me to go home. So I drove back from the San Francisco to Menlo Park, where we lived at the time. And I went to show everything to my wife, Regine. I was very proud of it. So I logged into the Schwab account and I was able to spin it around and show her, this multiple seven figures that we had in the Schwab account. Now, it's important to realize that my wife at that point was pregnant with our first son. She was probably at that point, probably like 4 or 5 months along. So sort of right in the middle. She was really tired, and she just, asked me two simple questions. When can we get access to that stock and turn it into money? And when can we buy the home? Because she really wanted to have a home to raise our family. I did not have the answers to those questions. I didn't know what came next. I just knew that we'd gotten to this point. And I think, playing back that tape, like, that had been my focus. My main focus had been, how do I get us to the point where we actually are able to get and acquire the wealth? But I hadn't thought about what came next. Now, at that point, then she was, still in nap mode, and I was coming back from this big party. She'd asked me those questions, and reality really started to sink in at that point. So I let her go back to sleep, and I went into the living room. And I have to say, like, I went from this incredible high of that morning to, like, just this plummeting off the cliff low. And I realized part of that had to do with the fact that I was at such a high. I was going to come down from there eventually. But the questions that she asked me were, just started this whole train of thinking, just started my mind churning. And I got really sad. I got really upset, and I actually cried a little bit, because I was worried that somehow this could be taken away from all of us, that we'd have this moment, but we were in the 6-month lockout period, that maybe the price could get depressed, and all of a sudden we'd gotten to this moment and it was in sight and it was going to be taken away from us. The biggest lesson that I learned, and so this day, when I reflect back, and what did I learn from this IPO day of extremes, and why was I feeling that way? And here's the thing that nobody tells you. When I got to the top of the mountain, I realized that there was a whole other mountain to climb, that from where I was in my vantage point of getting to building wealth, there's this whole other mountaintop called managing wealth that nobody tells you about. I got there and I saw this whole other peak, and I felt overwhelmed because I thought I'd gotten to the point where I'd arrived. I thought I'd gotten to the point where now everything was done, but it wasn't. There was a whole other mountain to climb, and I was exhausted mentally and emotionally, and was feeling very overwhelmed in that moment. The reality is that I had a lot more to learn, because the other peak was different. The other peak was actually, I would say, more steep, was actually a different type of mountain to climb. And I didn't see a lot of people climbing it. And I knew that I had more skills that I had to learn, and I had more lessons to learn. And in fact, one of the other lessons that I had to learn that I learned in the next couple of days after my IPO was one of the hardest lessons that I ever learned. All right, I told you that this was going to get real, and I was not lying to you. This is going to get really real. So, one of the hardest lessons that I learned that just happened literally 48 hours after the IPO is the fact that I was going to need a new network, a new group of people to help me through this. And let me tell you the story. So, after I went through the IPO, obviously feeling very low, and I was really struggling with some of these things over the next couple of days. And I think, like many of us, when we struggle with things, what do? We call people that we know who know us to be able to share with them what's going on with us mentally and emotionally, to get empathy, to get understanding, to feel like I'm going to be okay. And so when I did that with a close family member, I reached out to have a conversation and just let them know, yeah, I went through this IPO event. It was amazing. And we actually did really well, multiple seven-figure payday. And I said, but I'm really struggling with this. Like, I'm really like feeling a lot of doubt and all of these things, and shared with them truly like what I was feeling at the time. And their response to me was something that I'd never forget, which was, what are you crying about? You just won the lottery. Now, you have to understand, like, this was shocking to me because this was usually somebody that was so empathetic. And so this was shocking to hear this come back to me because this wasn't something that this person would normally have said. So from that, there was a couple things. Like, number one, they didn't hear me. Like, I wasn't complaining. I was trying to share with them that, like, the emotional state that I'm in after this isn't what I expected. And they couldn't understand. The other thing that they did is they talked about it like winning the lottery, which I think was demeaning to a lot of the hard work that I put in. I still don't know because we haven't really talked about it to this day because it was incredibly hurtful. I mean, it hurt me. Yeah, when I got that shocking feedback, I realized that people who did not climb this mountain to wealth, like they didn't understand it. They didn't understand what the responsibility was when you got to the top. They didn't realize like what the journey was like to get there. And if you have done something that's difficult and then you win, people just see the end result. And if they think the end result is great, then they don't understand why you may have non-positive emotions around that. So the lesson that I learned from that is that I needed to find a new network of people to talk with who really understood this. And so, again, this is where, managing tech millions, I name this Managing Tech Millions for a reason. Number one is we should not be ashamed of what we've done. We've made millions of dollars and now we want to learn how to manage it. No shame in that. We worked hard and we got to this point. And I also want you to know that it's okay to come in here and talk about all of the feelings and emotions that come with the responsibility of managing that money and wanting to manage it well. It's important. And this is a safe space. I think the other thing that I learned that was incredibly powerful is that, my current peer group, some of the people that, I was very close to emotionally at the time, may not be part of my wealth journey. So I didn't eliminate them from my life. Like, we still talked about, relationship and family and normal living. But as far as my wealth journey went, I needed to have a new group of people. So after my experience with the family member, I thought, let me go and talk to an executive that I was close to in that company who had just been through the same event, because I needed to get some of these feelings off my chest. And so I walked in, sat down, and started sharing what I was feeling, and sort of teed up the conversation. Hey, can we talk about the IPO? Like, I gotta say, like, what I'm feeling is not what I expected that I was gonna feel. Like, this is different. This was, I believe, the second or third experience that this person had had. They'd been through the sudden wealth and they were able to empathize and relate. And more than anything, let me know that this was normal. And that validating my thought that, you can't talk to everybody about this, but you need to find people that have been through this, or, maybe therapists that truly understand this, to have these conversations, to work through these feelings, to get back to a base of confidence. So then I thought, well, let me talk about some of these other questions that I had, which is, so then how do you start managing this money to get to financial independence? So I started down that road. So then how do you do this? How do you do that? And that's when, this executive raised their hand and said, oh, yes, I've been through a couple of these IPOs. I'm great at making the money. I am horrible at managing the money. Stop me dead in my tracks. Because what I realized is then when you get to that first mountain, you get to the top of the building wealth mountain and you see the managing wealth mountain up there, the second one that you have to climb. What I realized then at that point is some people don't want to climb it. This person was, they stayed in this role, they sought other roles at this level, and they kept making the money, and then they kept infusing that into their lifestyle. And so they did not look to leverage the wealth to unlock a lifestyle, but they just kept working. And that was shocking for me too. That was the second lesson that I learned that was so valuable, is that people on this journey, other people that have gone through these sudden wealth events with you, not all of them want to climb the next mountain. Not all of them want to transition from money maker to money manager. And so that's important. And these are important questions that you ask yourself. What do you want to do now? Are you going to be the person that I'm great at making wealth, at generating wealth, and I have no desire to manage it? Or no, I want to actually climb the second mountain. If that's new for you, let that sink in a little bit. When you think about now managing your wealth, the second mountain, it is a completely new set of rules. However, some of the skills that we've learned before are also applicable, right? We've already climbed one mountain. These are the same mountain climbing skills. So for me, I wanted to understand, what are the rules of the game of managing wealth? And so one of the skills that I used was I went back to my network. I think in technology, we always leverage our network. If we need to learn a new skill or we need to understand a new technology, we try and look, oh, who do I know that knows that? Or do I know somebody who knows that? And as I started going through my network, I realized that a good friend of mine who I'd gone to undergrad with, who had lived and worked, and we used to hang out in the Bay Area, he had gone back to business school, became an investment banker, and was now working in a private family office. And this is a friend of mine, Marco Cavedo. And if you want to hear Marco and I talking, you can go to episode 95, where he and I break down, the whole process of an investment thesis and how that drives a microfamily office and a single family office. But in talking with Marco, he is somebody that's working with centimillionaires, people who have $100+ million. Today, he works with a family that has multiple billions of dollars as their chief investment officer. So he has a seat to how do the ultra wealthy play the game. He is who I utilize to understand what is the rule book. And what I came to understand is that the ultra wealthy play by a completely different set of rules than we're taught in the middle class. And so that became my quest, to understand from him, from other people who were doing it themselves, is to really start to understand how the game is played differently. And I had to learn these brand new things. I had to learn the new rules. So I had to learn, how did the ultra wealthy think differently than the middle class? And if that's something that you want to learn, go to episode 103 of the Foundation series, where I talk about the ultra wealthy mindset. But here's what I learned from Marco, and this is important, is that Marco broke it down for me. He said he was the one who really gave me the new set of rules, which is some things that I'm teaching you in this Foundation series. So this is where I'd encourage you to start from the beginning and listen to all of it, is that the ultra wealthy, they manage their wealth like a business, right? They see it and they set it as a legacy. And there's a big difference in this ultra wealthy mindset and a middle class mindset. And the reality is, our wealth, we can grow it and live off it at the same time, but we need to execute to this new set of rules. The new set of rules is you have to manage it like a business. That means that you have to have a mission and vision statement for it. That means you have to structure it like a business. That means that you need to build an evergreen portfolio, something that's going to provide you income and keep growing, not a drawdown portfolio. You also need to be investing in private equity and understand how to do that successfully. You also need to invest in private equity income investments and be looking for yield from 6 to 8% cash on cash and not take what's given in the traditional markets. Like, he went through and broke all of this down for me and really showed me these are the new rules of the game. It was at that point that I really started to have the vision. It was really in this journey that when I was able to talk to somebody who broke down the rules for me, that my mindset started to pivot hard. I started to realize, wait a second, I can do this. I am now seeing what are the steps that I need to take that go back to this awareness that I had at Robert Kiyosaki and really understand, how do I now go and climb this mountain, start managing my money so that it works for me, and then be able to build the lifestyle around it. And that's one of the things that I would encourage you to do, is that when you step outside of your network and not just step out of your side of your network to help manage the feelings and emotions, which are so important, but when you step outside of your network to go understand the rules of the game and how you actually need to play to win the game and what winning means for you, then all of a sudden you can start reverse engineering and understanding, what do you need to do to climb the second mountain? So let me dig into this. I want to describe to you how I started climbing the mountain, the second mountain, how I got prepared, what were the tools that I needed. So created a little bit of an analogy here. Bear with me. I think that you'll enjoy it. So I wanted to climb this mountain to go from money maker to money manager, to be able to get to freedom, to be able to build a business around my wealth so then I could build the lifestyle that I desired. So I needed then to climb this new mountain. It required ropes. In the ropes, the things that helped pull me up was engaging in building a brand new network for people who talked about this and people who were doing this and people who had done it successfully. Your network is your ropes. They're going to pull you up. But as they're pulling you up, you also need to push yourself up. So you need some of those grippy climbing shoes. The grippy climbing shoes are really a solid education so that you understand, what is the foundation? What are you pushing off of? What do you really know? And what are you grounded in? These climbing shoes are really your education. You also need some carabiners and chalk, like what are going to help make you more efficient as you're climbing up. These are really, the systems, those are technology. It's also the processes. Like, how do you actually run this? How do you actually take something out of the box and then execute it? And then your safety net, right? What's going to protect you, or your safety rope as you fall, is, continuing to build that network of people that have been there, done that, and you're doing it together. You're not solo climbing by yourself, but you're doing it with a group of people that are going to help you be successful along the way. These are all of the things that, I was able to learn from my conversation with Marco and reflecting on it, that got me ready to climb this mountain. And I have to tell you that emotionally, right, as I started understanding and I saw the rules to the game, and all of a sudden I started mapping and understanding and saying, okay, wait, yeah, I know engaging in building a network, that was something that I did successfully when I was, making my money. I can do that. Education, constantly learning, being in a growth mindset is something that is critical to actually being successful in technology. So I knew how to do that as well. Again, had to map it somewhere else. Systems and processes. I implemented systems and processes, created systems and processes. I knew how to do that as well. So this is where it's a new set of skills, a new subject area, but I understood what it meant to be successful. These are the things that got me excited on how to climb the mountain. So this is my message to you, right? Is when we're thinking about, this is my origin story. This is how I changed my mindset to get ready to go up the second mountain. And I wanted to just say right here that to climb the second mountain, to get ready, it's truly around shifting your skill set to build new tools And it's also about understanding what are the rules of the new game, what is the landscape of this new mountain, and how do you need to play to win. And the last thing that I'll tell you, in this section is just so that you understand is that it is much easier to do it with people and to do it in a network of people that are learning and growing at the same time than it is to go at it alone. This story is my story of from April 19th, 2012, being depressed, filled with anxiety after achieving one of my biggest goals of making multiple millions of dollars, to now being in an environment where I'm surrounded by a curated network of other portfolio CEOs who are managing their microfamily offices together. And this is the journey that's out there for you too. This is the first part of the origin story. And this is how I changed my mindset. And this isn't about what I did. This isn't about how things ended, but this is about how I woke up and I realized I needed to think differently. The big titles, the big pay, that's really not the goal, right? The goal is ultimately is how do you have ownership over your time, your energy, and your purpose? How do you own your lifestyle? That's ultimately the goal. And this is ultimately what we want to share here, Managing Tech Millions. This is our purpose, is to let you know that there's people out there that are doing it just like you, and we're here for you. My name is Christopher Nelson. I've built and run my own microfamily office, and I'm here to teach others to do the same. You can listen to this podcast. It's weekly at managingtechmillions.com. And we also produce a newsletter as well. We're continuing to produce more educational posts and things to show you how you can take what you've built so far, the skills, the wealth, and you can pivot that into a business that not just unlocks the lifestyle today, but also builds a generational legacy. We'll see you next week.